Hello and welcome back, or welcome for the first time to Role Models. Jared Walsh here. I am your host. This is a podcast about showcasing elite people doing elite things. Yes, you may know my guests for what they do in the public eye, but I want to focus on what they're doing away from the spotlight and how they're changing the world in a positive way. Episode 1, I had a chat to a man who you probably know as the former general manager of the Adelaide 36ers. His name is Ben Fitzsimmons, and you wouldn't believe what he had to do as the GM.
You really are hands-on. Like, you know, I would be washing the toilets before a game would open because we just needed to get things done.
And at present, he is a member of the Australian Cannabis Corporation. These guys are trying to bring money into South Australia, trying to get a heap of jobs and also save lives at the same time.
We can really, inject a huge amount of revenue into the state. We can employ a lot of people, and as a side effect of doing those two things, we can also make people well.
Would love for you to go back and have a listen to episode 1, but I am stoked to bring you my next special guest on episode 2 of Role Models. So I've got the big guns out really early, and I'm only into episode 2 of Role Models. This man you may know for his amazing work on Fox Sports Australia. He's the front man for Fox Football and their coverage over the summer. Does a stack of work for them over the winter and other seasons as well. And also once commentated some jousting. We will get to that very soon. He's also an author writing an amazing book about the Australian Socceroos. But what you may not know about this guy is the huge journey he's about to embark on, trying to raise money for a really important cause. He's a family man and he definitely has a story to tell. So I'm so honoured to present to you, for episode 2 of Role Models, my guest, Adam Peacock. Adam, I probably could announce you as professional jousting commentator because I do recall it was a few weeks ago. I think it was over Christmas. I was sitting down watching Fox Sports and I saw, what is going on here? There was no A-League football on that night. So I think it was the night off when all of those games were played and you were commentating the jousting. Can you first off just explain what happened there? How did that come about?
Yeah, I thought it was a joke. When I've gone in and I was doing my contract at the end of last year, and I basically said to the boss, "Yeah, look, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I love what I do, but don't be afraid to chuck me whatever my way. If you sign the Scandinavian Trotting Duck League, I'll go and do that if you want me to." And he goes, and he laughed, and he goes, "Oh, we might have some jousting." And I went, I thought that was along the lines of what I said. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty funny, blah, blah, blah. Get a call 2 days later. Adam, you're doing the jousting on September 25 at St Ives Showground in Sydney. So, it was out of nowhere. It was something different. I probably wouldn't want to do it every week, but once a year is probably enough. But, yeah, it's still firmly imprinted on my mind what went down there at St Ives that afternoon.
Well, it definitely stood out, and my wife's actually from St Ives, so I was trying to have a conversation with her about it. So she was really bored with the conversation, so I won't talk about my wife too much here. But I am fascinated with your career because you are someone that I have huge respect for in the way that you present on the television. Your presenting style for me is so casual but so informative, and the way that you conduct yourself is it's a huge ambition of mine to follow in your footsteps for someone who loves sport, but also the way that you can do it. How did you get your start and end up where you are now on Fox Sports?
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. I wish I called you when I was doing that contract and would have got you to speak to the boss. But no, thanks for that, mate. How did I get to Fox Sports? I actually did in high school, go back to high school. I didn't get the marks to get the uni course that I wanted to, so I couldn't get into university. So I ended up going to a place called Macleay College, which is a private college here in Sydney, for a 1-year course. It's more of a intense, like you do all the work that you do over 3 years, but less drinking at a university. And ended up getting the diploma of journalism from that joint. It was basically by a diploma. And then just 6 months later, I ended up landing a job at Channel 7, which I was pretty fortunate to get because there was a fair few applicants. And then spent 8.5 years there, and then I was mainly reporting and producing at Channel 7. And then Fox called one day and said, "How about you come over here and do some presenting?" And I'd never done it before, so I didn't know how I was going to go, but they were good enough to give me a go, and I quite enjoyed it. And, 10 years later, I'm still at Fox.
I love watching Fox because it seems the opportunities that are presented to the people who work for Fox Sports Australia. I know locally here in South Australia, we had a guy, his name is Tom Wilson, and he started off over here just doing work for the AFL side of Fox Sports Australia and Fox Footy. He ended up going overseas to report on the NBA finals, and I've obviously seen you do a lot of work in the tennis overseas as well. So your career's really taken you to some really amazing places where people can only dream of going, not just to, watch as a fan, but also to put it on your resume. It's not too bad.
Yeah, the Brazil World Cup was outstanding. The Olympic Games I covered with both Foxtel and also Channel 7. I remember clearly that it was the anniversary a couple of weeks ago of Stephen Bradbury's win in Salt Lake City, 15-year anniversary. And I remember as clear as day where I was. We were in the International Broadcast Centre. We watched it. We all looked at each other, started laughing, turned to the television screen, made sure it actually happened, turned around again, started laughing, and then 3 hours later, next thing we know, we're in a Salt Lake City nightclub, and there's very few of them drinking watered-down Budweiser celebrating Stephen Bradbury's gold medal. It was a surreal night. So things like that, I mean, it's money can't buy. It's part of the job, and you do go through things which are not as glamorous. Like for 8 years there at Channel 7, I got up at 4 a.m. every Sunday morning to work on a program like Sports World, so that kind of ruined my Saturday night. Yeah. But it was worth it because the flip side is you get to experience other things like that. So you can't really complain. I talk to all my mates, and they're in various jobs, and they just look at me envious, and I think to myself, yeah, well, my job's got downsides, but I don't bother going through them because I know what I'm going to get. It's just looks that could kill from their way. So yeah, it's a good job, but the thing I found, as long as you don't treat it like a job, you treat it like you're still that sports fan who's amazed and annoyed and in wonderment at some of these things these athletes do. That makes it a hell of a lot easier.
It's fascinating, though, isn't it? Because I experience the same sort of experiences as you have. I mean, I'm involved in sports presentation for basically every sporting club in South Australia, and I do the Socceroos games as well. But for me, to be able to arrive at the game, say an A-League game, for example, if kickoff's at 7, I'm at the game at 4, and for me, the most exhausting time is pre-game, and then you almost find that you are focusing and concentrating on so much. There's an element where you need to go home and watch the replay of what you have just experienced because you're in work mode while your mates are sitting in the Red Army having a few beers and abusing the referees. It is work mode for you, but you still need to maintain that element of being a part of the environment. And as you said, with Stephen Bradbury, for example, you can go home and reflect and go, I not only was a part of that, but I also had a role to play in everything. Yeah,
it is quite weird because you're right. It changes the way you watch sport. Being involved in the industry and television, for example, it's changed the way I watch sporting events. Now, I've got my teams that I'm a fervent supporter of, be it Newcastle United in English football, LA Lakers in basketball, Manly in rugby league, Sydney Swans in AFL. But aside from that, I'll watch a normal sporting event and I'll look at it from a television angle rather than a sporting angle. You can't kind of separate it now that you're that entrenched in it. So it does change it. It doesn't make it any less enjoyable. It doesn't make it hard work or anything. It just changes your perspective.
You are also known for an amazing book that you wrote and published called That Night. And you mentioned before with the Stephen Bradbury moment, we all know with certain events in our lives where we were and what happened. And the Socceroos qualifying for the World Cup, I was at a dodgy pub in South Australia. It happened. I remember I had to work the next day here at the radio station I work at. I went to my mate's house after getting a disgusting Euros, and I was so hungover the next day, but I wouldn't change a thing. So for you to be able to document this whole journey and experience and then, have some pretty successful book sales as well, what gave you the inspiration to write that book?
Regret, because I wasn't there that night. I was actually, my son had just been born, my firstborn, and something was up. I haven't got great clarity on what happened with him, but something happened to him that made me feel guilty about going, so I stayed at home. Now, I know this was the be-all and end-all, and it felt like the be-all and end-all, so I made the conscious decision to go, right, no, I'll stay home, and I'll just watch it by myself, no one else annoy me for 2 hours, and it ended up being a little over 2 hours, obviously, and watch it. But I do regret that decision, big style, and have done for a very long time. So I decided to go and write a book about it to try and make up to myself. So it was a really enjoyable experience, and again, finding out what makes athletes tick. That's the enjoyable part, because they're essentially what we wanted to be, but we're not good enough to be.
Well, that's what I love about your presenting style as well is, and I wanted to ask you, for someone like myself who goes and speaks to a lot of students about how they get into the media and the industry and things like that, and I'm not as such in sports media, but I find that the attitude of a lot of people, they almost close the door on a dream to get involved in sports media because of the amount of ex-players, so ex-footballers, ex-cricketers, ex-AFL players that almost walk into media jobs. And I look at someone like yourself, James Brayshaw to an extent, even though he was a really good cricketer, Gerard Whateley, I remember Clinton Gribus before he sadly passed away. The ability of a sports journalist and a sports presenter to understand their role of getting the best out of the ex-athlete, and that's something I think you do really well, to be able to do that. Do you find that it is a really interesting climate at the moment of ex-athletes just moving into these media roles? And sometimes the assumption is when you ask a person who's leaving their chosen sport, what do you want to do? And they'll go, I'll just do some media. It's almost offensive at times.
Yeah, a little bit. It's certainly not that easy. I do get ticked off at the ones that say I'm just going to walk into a job after they've basically annoyed the media for the lack of availability over their career. But that's becoming few and far between. I'm noticing a huge difference, especially with NRL and AFL players with Fox Footy and Fox League coming in, that you can really see the players that understand that if I'm good to these people and give great insight, they'll look after me down the line. Something good could come of that. So it's changing a little bit, but there is, and I'll maintain it, there is always the need for some kind of journalistic presence on a panel or in a newspaper or on the radio, because you can't expect – you want that perspective of the ex-player. You don't want the ex-player to sit there and ask the questions, because I want to hear what he's got to say about what happened. And he can't really ask himself a question or herself a question. So that's why I'm happy to sit there, and I'm never going to give my opinion unless it flies in the face of common sense. Common sense being the discussion that might take place in whatever realm, be it governance of sport or actually something that's happened with a refereeing decision or the like. But I'm never going to give a valued opinion on tactics when I'm sitting next to Mark Bosnich and Mark Rudin, because they're surely going to supersede my thoughts given what they've experienced in their careers. So I always think there's a place for a journalistic presence in that regard.
Well, you went through that recently over the past couple of nights, of course, with the Australian football sides really struggling in the ACL, and Mark Bosnich being so vocal about his views and the comment of being the darkest day for Australian club football. And I also recall it was either last season or the season before, you were just wrapping up a post-game conversation with Sydney FC coach Graham Arnold, and he made a beeline for you on the chat, which was just fascinating viewing, but the way you handled that was brilliant. So I guess the question I wanted to ask to wrap up the chat about the A-League really quickly is, do you find that you really do need to remain impartial? Because these the professionals that you speak to, and there are so many now that are working for Fox Sports Australia and also SBS, they will go in knowing players, knowing situations, and your role is to get the best out of them. But sometimes when you do encounter those curly moments, you just have to almost sit back and go, it's live television, I need to work off the cuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't use an auto cue. I dislike it because it takes away that dynamic, and I reckon it adds a layer between yourself and the viewer. And I know some people do use an auto cue, and that's fine. I don't begrudge them one bit. But personally speaking, I just feel for my own benefit, it adds a layer between myself and the viewer. Now, the big thing I think of watching television is that if you're watching a discussion on air, you want to feel like you're actually part of the discussion rather than you're viewing people almost like on the next table at a pub having a discussion. You want to feel like you're actually there. So that's why you need to kind of engage the audience a little bit and look down the camera and give a stupid look or whatever, or ask a question down the barrel. I don't see the point of making it an insular kind of, giving it an insular feel. That's the way I try to operate. And also when I'm watching a sporting contest and I'm talking about it at half time, I'll just basically pick up things, and if I'm watching it at home and think, oh, why did that happen? And I'm in the perfect position that I've got the two experts next to me who can tell me why it happened. That's all I need to do. Sometimes, time after time, I come back from an ad break and on Matchday Saturday at half time, and all I need to ask Bozza is, what did you think of that half? Because they don't care what I think of that half. They want to know what the big man thinks of it. So just get to him as soon as possible and let him go for it.
You're so right about what you said about live television as well, and I always encourage people here at our radio station to always act live, just because it really shows the human element. Now, I don't mind if I'm talking into a song and I stuff up my words, because the most important thing is how I handle that stuff up, and it's the same as talking into the microphone if I'm doing Adelaide United playing a Champions League game against names that I can't pronounce. The challenge for me is to go, I want to perfect this. So when I finish it, I'll go, you know what? That's really good. And that's amazing that you don't use an auto cue as well, because it is so easy for people to just fall back on the audio cue, and it just makes my love for you even more, mate. So that's fantastic.
I said, some people like using it just as cues, which I totally understand. But for me, it actually muddles me, because I get confused about what I'm looking at, and I don't have the concentration to switch off one part of my brain and then switch it on another part of my brain to read something in front of me.
I just wanted to ask you finally, before we get into the second part of the podcast, the role of social media in your career. I know that for people who probably don't know you, you're a family man, you've got 3 kids, and you have a look at something like your Instagram and you go, wow, first of all, I thought you were about 31 years old. But to be able to share that other side of your life with Twitter, and of course with social media, there comes good and bad. But it seems to be really important now with social media at the moment. I speak of, for example, former Socceroo John McCain the other day tweeted about him not getting paid from his club over in Asia, and it just went crazy on social media. It just seems that social media now, as athletes, but also people within the media on the spotlight, it is a really powerful tool, and it can be used for good or evil.
It's a 24-hour newspaper published by people, not published by journalists. It's there in front of you. There's a new story every 30 seconds when you refresh your feed, so you can get carried away with it. And I'm reminded time and time again that my best friend in the house is actually my phone, and I should wean myself off it a little more, but I'm just fascinated by it, unfortunately. But I should be more fascinated with my kids. It's 4, by the way, now. I'm up to 4.
Oh, 4. Sorry, far out.
Yeah, that's right. I'm done, though. I'm well and truly done. But there you go. I keep them off Twitter, because there's too many clowns on Twitter. Twitter's a good place to be a smartass, I've worked out.
Yeah.
To go on there and not take life too seriously, because let's face it, are you really going to get anything out of life if you're having an argument with someone on Twitter? Don't think so.
No, you're right.
I can't see how, even if you win the argument, you're going to walk away thinking, why did the hell did I just waste my time with someone whose profile picture is something out of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm never going to know who they are, even if I meet them. So it flies in the face of common sense. That Instagram's good just for pretty pics, and I'm a visual person, so I like pretty pics, and Facebook's good for staying in contact with family. So social media is fantastic, I reckon. It's just a way of managing it. Snapchat I don't get. My son, who's 11, he's just hopped onto Snapchat.
Get him off Snapchat, mate.
I don't understand it. I should understand it. I better understand it quick smart, because I've heard some interesting things about Snapchat. But it's a hard one. You want to give them a bit of rein while still keeping control, and that's a tricky balance.
Well, Instagram's purchased Snapchat, I think. Instagram owns it now, so Instagram's taking over. So Snapchat will be redundant really soon, so you won't have anything to worry about.
I can only hope so, but from what I've seen, Snapchat amongst 11 and 12-year-olds is 20 times more popular than anything else.
I know, because everything vanishes, mate. So and now, look, speaking of social media, your Twitter account, of course, is at Adam Peacock 3, and some great things stand out. The Lakers fan probably doesn't stand out to me so much because I'm a massive LeBron James fan, but pinned to the top of your Twitter is a link to a video, and that you're going to be running the entire Northern Beaches for a good cause. And that's where I want to take the second half of the podcast, because the Role Models podcast is to talk to influential people, and you are definitely one of them. But also, I wanted to put the spotlight on the amazing things that you are doing with a group of people, and that is the Run for Beaches for Hannah. For people who don't know or who haven't seen the video, did you just want to give us a brief background of what this actually run on the 6th of March is designed for?
Yeah, so Monday, 6th of March, we're running from Shelley Beach in Sydney, and I've checked the weather forecast. We've got a howling 30k an hour southerly behind us, thankfully, not into us, but behind us. So Shelley Beach, which is near Manly Beach, for those people that know that piece of geography, all the way up to Summer Bay, Palm Beach. Not sure if Al Stewart's going to be at the finishing line for us, but...
They probably will be. My father-in-law lives in Newport, which is near there, so he might go up and have a look.
Yeah, may as well tell him to come up about hopefully around midday on Monday. We'll be finishing up, but we're running every single beach on the Northern Beaches, and then in between the beaches there's either headlands that you can run around or over. So we'll keep running. We won't stop. It's 33 k's, I think, along the sand. So me and a mate a couple of months ago, he did something similar last year, but he got in a car in between each beach and then ran the beach, and then got back in the car and ran the next beach. I said to him, how about we do it, but we run the whole thing? And he goes, yeah, that's a good challenge, because he runs an outdoor fitness business, Fit 45 on the Northern Beach of Sydney. Look him up. They're great people. Well, he's a great person, and he's kind of helped me with my fitness and staying active and all that. And we thought, let's do this. And then about 2 weeks later, we thought, we've got to hook this to something, because it's great that we're doing something for ourselves, but we could actually raise some money for a worthy cause here. And then I saw something in the local paper highlighting the plight of a little girl called Hannah and her mum, Katrina, a single mum, who we actually knew because my son, when he was born 11 and a half years ago, and my wife, Rachel, they were placed in the same mother's group as Katrina, Hannah and Amelia, Hannah's twin sister. Now, about 2 years into their lives, they found out they had Rett syndrome, which is a genetic disorder which basically renders them incapable of communicating. Physically, they're just wrecked, but mentally, there's still something there. They still have the ability to communicate. They just can't. So I read about this, and it reminded me of her. We kind of dropped out about 5-6 years ago, dropped out of contact because they had other things. Amelia, the twin sister, died about 4 years ago. She had 23 bouts of pneumonia in 4 years, and the 23rd got her. One of the side effects is a really low immune system to this, as well as not being able to communicate or really walk around. Severely disabled. Scoliosis they have. Hannah has to have an operation later in the year to put 2 rods from one end of her spine to the other, either side of the spine. So it's a pretty damn rough card that she's been dealt, really rough. And Katrina as well, the single mum, who's a wonderful, wonderful human being. So I thought, now stuff this, let's raise some money, because there's this new, I think it's out of Adelaide, the company, it's called a Toby machine. It's an eye-gazing machine. So it basically allows people with disabilities like this to use their eyes, and then the computer, they train themselves up on it. It's a fair old process. The computer then can read what they're thinking, what they're trying to say.
Wow.
So it jumps out of the computer about what they're trying to convey to the people around them. Katrina knows that Hannah's got so many questions about what happened to her sister 4 years ago, about where she went, how'd she die, all of this. She was depressed. Katrina saw that with her. She was depressed, but it's a heartbreaking story. But anyway, we wanted to help somehow, and these machines cost $20,000, and luckily enough, we've got to the $20,000 already, but anything else we raise is going to go into a trust fund that Hannah's got already set up for her ongoing expenses through life.
We'll ask you about how we become involved and support the cause in a few minutes' time, but I wanted to ask you about the connection that you have to Katrina and Hannah. And as you said, you had the mothers group. The reason why I asked, because I was at an Adelaide 36ers game 2 games ago, so it was one of their first finals, and a security guard came up to me and he said, "Excuse me, Jared, there's someone who wants to meet you. Her name is Cheyenne, and she wanted to meet you at the last game." And I said, "No worries, I'll go and see her." And he said, "Yep, just to let you know that she's blind." And I said, "That's totally fine." And I went up and met her for the first time, and she was sitting there with her mother, Colleen, and I said hello, and she said, "I know your voice. I listen to you all the time. I just wanted to meet you." And this is a 7-8-year-old girl communicating with me. And I said to her mum, "Do you mind if I take Cheyenne down onto the basketball court so she can experience what it's like?" And she said, "No worries." And I picked up Cheyenne, and the first thing she said was, "Just don't drop me or walk into anything because I'm blind." And I said, "No worries." And I took her down, and you kind of realise at that moment, you go, first of all, this young woman doesn't know what the colour blue is. She doesn't know what a basketball looks like. She can only get descriptions, but how do you describe something to someone who hasn't seen anything before? And I brought her into the radio station yesterday and, held her hand the whole time and made her a little mixtape. And for some reason, I just developed this connection to her and her story, that this young girl is so positive and just wants to live her life. And her mother, Colleen, is also just such a strong person. And there's times like this where you step away and you go, "You know what? Today I was pissed off because my coffee tasted like shit." And this woman, and it would be the same for Katrina, going, they have a daily struggle. They have a struggle every hour, every minute. And here's me. I just hate that sometimes it takes these experiences for you to reflect on your own life and go, first of all, we are so lucky, but second of all, we are in a position to change someone else's life positively, which is what you guys are doing.
Yeah. I went round and met Katrina, and it's a similar story to what you had there, that it certainly wiped away everything that I had negative going on that particular day, whether it be stuck in traffic for 15 more minutes than I wanted to, or I banged my toe on the door, or something like that. Yeah, they're remarkable people, and I do wonder sometimes how they view us in terms of, we have a sense of normality about our lives, and whether or not they go, "You've got no idea, you've got no idea how hard life can be," and I'm sure they don't, because they're just emotionally in another space to where we are, and what their priorities are in life. And just a remarkable person, Katrina, just an absolutely remarkable person, the mum. And Hannah, she's totally devoted to her daughter, still is really closely linked to Amelia. Obviously, there's photos all around the house as well. But when you do something like this for someone like that, it doesn't make you feel happy. It makes you feel satisfied, that you can have some tiny small bearing on something positive for them, because they probably see positives in a totally different light to what we do, or probably identify positives that are totally different to what we do. And like you say, a positive for Katrina might be that she's able to get Hannah into her car, into her wheelchair and into her car without any real struggle. It's totally removed from, as mentioned, the sense of normality that the ordinary person lives in.
Can I ask, is the first thing you did after you found out about this story, you go home and you sit down with your 4 kids and you just look at them and go, I really feel for these people, but God, I'm lucky.
Yeah. I realise that on a daily basis, actually, because the kids are at school, and schools are a wonderful, primary schools especially at the moment, are a wonderful place, because there's so much inclusion, and there's so much teaching of inclusion and encouragement of inclusion, that I can't remember back in primary school whether or not that was the case. It was too long ago, but you're still forming your thoughts. You don't really have a great sense of memory about day-to-day life as a primary school student, more so high school, yes, but primary school is a wonderful place. So they've got a really good appreciation, and we live next door to a teenager with severe autism. She can't communicate except for yelling, so we hear that, and it's something that they've become accustomed to, in that sense that nothing is really surprising or shocking for them, and they've got a high level of acceptance, which I'm really proud of, because it'll help them through life every single day.
I just wanted to wrap this up. Adam, first of all, I wanted to ask how we do donate. For the people listening at the moment, before the 6th of March, of course, we want to do it before the run, but we can always do it afterwards as well. And I think it's really important. A great thing about a podcast is that it is timeless, and the cause doesn't stop after the Run the Beaches for Hannah. So I think there'd be a lot of people listening going, it's a really powerful story, and we wanted to donate financially. We wanted to find out more information, of course, and find out more about this story.
Yeah, just go to GoFundMe. So it's Run the Beaches for Hannah is the campaign, but go to GoFundMe and search Run Beaches Hannah, I guess. And yeah, you can donate straight through there. As I mentioned before, we've hit the 20,000 that we wanted to hit, but we're going to keep going to contribute to Hannah's trust fund, which is ongoing. I mean, they had a 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe even longer, they need to reconfigure a car to fit in 2 wheelchairs. This is when Amelia was still alive, so they had a big fundraiser night, and they raised $30,000 to be able to do that. But amazingly, and this is the generosity of some human beings, an anonymous donor donated $50,000 on top of the 30 that was done. So they set up a trust fund for the girls, which now obviously is all towards Hannah's expenses, which are great. I mean, she lives in a housing commission place, and Katrina's on a disability carer's pension, so she can't work. So there's always something to pay for her, and not exactly flush with funds, put it that way. So we're going to push on past the 20 and see how far we can get this thing, and it'll be open for a couple of weeks after. I'd say a week or two after the run, after next week, and see where we can get to.
Awesome. I wanted to finish off the Role Models podcast, Adam, by asking you about being a role model. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and as I said, I'm obsessed with LeBron James, and I was listening to a podcast that Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye Cavaliers players have decided to do called Road Trippin', and I encourage everybody to listen to it because they have special guests on, including LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, the Australian-born NBA champion, and he was talking about he gets sick and tired of people saying that he's a good basketballer and he's known as a basketballer. He wants to be known as a good person who plays basketball, and it really resonated with me because you would see with your contacts within the media industry, within business, and also elite athletes who go through struggles every day, and that they are using their power for good. I speak of people like Aware Mobile, who was formerly at Adelaide United, who has the Barefoots to Boots campaign. We have a lot of AFL players who are spreading things like marriage equality, and Eddie Betts, who's doing a lot of work with Indigenous Australians. What I like to ask my special guests at the end of every podcast is the term role model. Do you believe that, because you mentioned earlier that we are fortunate to be in the position that we are in, we almost have an inherited responsibility to become a role model and do positive things within the world because there is so much negativity at the moment?
Yeah, I think people in the public eye just need to be good people. Whether that equates to the fact that you're a role model is not really up to the person that's trying to be a good person. They're just trying to be good. My biggest thing is that the ultimate role model, and always will be, is parents. And I see it every day with my kids. If I'm not at the races at home, if I'm not concentrating, if I'm angry and I fire up at them, they'll just mimic my behaviour, really. So I'm their role model. They'll copy everything I do. So I've seen it time and time again before with people I used to go to school with, people my kids go to school with, that if their parents aren't there or really investing in their time with them, at least one of them, it makes it damn hard for the kid to try and figure out what's right and what's wrong in the world. Parents are the ultimate role models, and it begins and almost ends at home. Now, where do athletes fit in all of this? I think they can be someone that parents can lean on to say, look at how hard this person has worked for what they get. Look at how they conduct themselves. But I don't think you can – I certainly don't, with my kids, pin a person that they don't know, they only see, as someone they should aspire to be like, because you actually don't know them inside out. I know that's a convoluted way of saying that I don't really agree with the notion of role models, but I do. It's just that I think it exists inside the four walls that you live in with them. And, parents are the ultimate role models.
No, it's a perfect way of putting it, mate. And on your Instagram, you and your lovely wife look like you are fantastic role models as well with your 4 kids. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to have a chat. As I said at the start, the idea of this podcast is to talk about people in the spotlight, in the public eye, and you're someone that I respect really highly. But even better, as a human being, you are doing amazing things, and you've got a really balanced view on life, which I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy listening to it. So, Adam Peacock, thank you so much for your time on the Role Models podcast, and I look forward to seeing you when you're in Adelaide next.
Well, no problems, mate. Yeah, cheers, Jared. And if they've got this far, we must have resonated somehow, or unless they've just fallen asleep on the train and they've got to the end of the podcast and missed it all and just come in for this bit. So, hello to you people as well.
You're a legend. Thanks, Adam.
Cheers, mate.
Yes, I know. I was fangirling for that whole half an hour speaking to Adam Peacock, but isn't he amazing? I mean, I'm just blown away at the fact he doesn't use an auto cue when he's on television live around Australia. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam Peacock3. That's the same handle for Instagram as well, at Adam Peacock3. And the links to the amazing run he's going to do, that's on his Twitter page. He has pinned it to the top. Thank you so much for having a listen to episode 2 of the Role Models podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that chat. I am all about sharing the good things that amazing people are doing, and Adam Peacock is exactly one of them. If you want to ask me any questions or you want to recommend anyone to speak to, at Jared Walsh on Twitter and also Facebook at Jared Walsh MC. Thank you so much for listening. Give this podcast a like and a share, and I'll chat to you in episode 3 with another elite human being.